of beauty and pleasure, and propelled it forward as a legitimate and worthy human pursuit, was that of the Renaissance. The pursuit wasn't restricted to the arts. It shaped the dress and the etiquette of courtiers, the language of the liturgy, the design and decoration of everyday objects. It suffused Leonardo da Vinci's scientific and technological exploration, Galileo's vivid dialogues on astronomy, Francis Bacon's ambitious research project, and Richard Hooker's theology. It was virtually a reflex, so that works that were seemingly far away from any aesthetic ambition at all, Machiavelli's analysis of political strategy, Walter Raleigh's description of Guyana, or Robert Burton's encyclopedic account of mental illness, were crafted in such a way as to produce the most intense pleasure. But the arts of the Renaissance, painting, sculpture, music, architecture, and literature, were the supreme manifestations of the pursuit of beauty. My own particular love was and is for Shakespeare. But Shakespeare's achievement seemed to me only one spectacular facet of a larger cultural movement that included Albert, Michelangelo, and Raphael, Ariosto, Montaigne, and Cervantes, along with dozens of other artists and writers. That movement had many intertwining and often conflicting aspects, but coursing through all of them, there was a glorious affirmation of vitality. The affirmation extends even to those many works of Renaissance art in which death seems to triumph. Hence the grave at the close of Romeo and Juliet does not so much swallow up the lovers as launch them into the future as the embodiments of love. In the enraptured audiences that have flocked to the play for more than 400 years, Juliet in effect gets her wish that after death, night should take Romeo and cut him out in little stars, and he will make the face of heaven so fine that all the world will be in love with night. Act 3, Scene 2, lines 22 through 24. Comparably capacious embrace of beauty and pleasure, an embrace that somehow extends to death as well as life, to dissolution as well as creation, characterizes Montaigne's restless reflections on matter in motion, Cervantes' chronicle of his mad night, Michelangelo's depiction of flayed skin, Leonardo's sketches of whirlpools, Caravaggio's loving attention to the dirty soles of Christ's feet. Something happened in the Renaissance, something that surged up against the constraints that centuries have constructed around curiosity, desire, individuality, sustained attention to the material world, the claims of the body. The cultural shift is notoriously difficult to define, and its significance has been fiercely contested. But it can be intuited easily enough when you look in Siena at Duccio's painting of the enthroned Virgin, the Maestà, and then in Florence at Botticelli's Primavera, a painting that, not coincidentally, was influenced by On the Nature of Things. In the principal panel of Duccio's magnificent altarpiece, circa 1310, the adoration of the angels, saints, and martyrs is focused on a serene center, the heavily robed Mother of God and her child absorbed in solemn contemplation. In the Primavera, circa 1482, the ancient gods of the spring appear together in a verdant wood, all intently engaged in the complex rhythmic choreography of renewed natural fecundity evoked in Lucretius's poem. Spring comes, and Venus, preceded by Venus's winged harbinger, and Mother Flora, following hard on the heels of Zephyr, prepares the way for them, strewing all their path with a profusion of exquisite hues and scents. The key to the shift lies not only in the intense, deeply informed revival of interest in the pagan deities and the rich meanings that once attached to them. It lies also in the whole vision of a world in motion, a world not rendered insignificant, but made more beautiful by its transience, its erotic energy, and its ceaseless change. Though most evident in works of art, The change from one way of perceiving and living in the world to another was not restricted to aesthetics. It helps to account for the intellectual daring of Copernicus and Vesalius, Giordano Bruno and William Harvey, Hobbes and Spinoza. The transformation was not sudden or once for all, but it became increasingly possible to turn away from a preoccupation with angels and demons and immaterial causes, and to focus instead on things in this world. To understand that humans are made of the same stuff as everything else and are part of the natural order. To conduct experiments without fearing that one is infringing on God's jealously guarded secrets. To question authorities and challenge received doctrines. To legitimate the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. To imagine that there are other worlds beside the one that we inhabit. To entertain the thought that the sun is only one star in an infinite universe. To live an ethical life without reference to post-mortem rewards and punishments. To contemplate without trembling the death of the soul. In short, it became possible, never easy but possible, in the poet Auden's phrase, to find the mortal world enough. There is no single explanation for the emergence of the Renaissance and the release of the forces that have shaped our own world. But I have tried in this book to tell a little-known but exemplary Renaissance story. The story of Poggio Bracciolini's recovery of On the Nature of Things. The recovery has the virtue of being true to the term that we use to gesture toward the cultural shift at the origins of modern life and thought. A renaissance, a rebirth of antiquity. One poem by itself was certainly not responsible for an entire intellectual, moral, and social transformation. No single work was, let alone one that for centuries couldn't without danger be spoken about freely in public. But this particular ancient book, suddenly returning to view, made a difference. This is a story, then, of how the world swerved in a new direction. The agent of change was not a revolution, an implacable army at the gates, or landfall on an unknown continent. For events of this magnitude, historians and artists have given the popular imagination memorable images: the fall of the Bastille, the sack of Rome, or the moment when the ragged seamen from the Spanish ships planted their flag in the New World. These emblems of world historic change can be deceptive. The Bastille had almost no prisoners. Attila's army quickly withdrew from the imperial capital. And in the Americas, the truly fateful action was not the unfurling of a banner, but the first time that an ill and infectious Spanish sailor, surrounded by wondering natives, sneezed or coughed. Still, we can in such cases at least cling to the vivid symbol. But the epical change with which this book is concerned, though it has affected all of our lives, is not so easily associated with a dramatic image. When it occurred, nearly 600 years ago, the key moment was muffled and almost invisible, tucked away behind walls in a remote place. There were no heroic gestures, no observers keenly recording the great event for posterity, no signs in heaven or on earth that everything had changed forever. A short, genial, cannily alert man in his late 30s reached out one day, took a very old manuscript off a library shelf, saw with excitement what he had discovered, and ordered that it be copied. That was all. But it was enough.